I'm the Ambassador of Peru to the United Kingdom, Juan Carlos Gamarra, and continuing with our cycle of podcasts on the World Heritage Sites located in Peru, this time I'm pleased to be connected again with Dr. Luis Enrique López-Hurtado, coordinator of the cultural sector at the UNESCO Office in Peru. Enrique is an archaeologist graduated from the Catholic University of Peru and has a master's degree and a PhD in anthropology from the University of Pittsburgh. As a teacher and a researcher, he has published a series of works on the process of building and the expansion of the Inca Empire and on the religious syncretism during the first decades of the colonial period. This time, Enrique is going to explain to us the meaning and importance of the sacred city of Caral, Supe. Thank you very much, Enrique, once again.
Mr. Ambassador. Caral, indeed, it's a very special case in the World Heritage List. The importance of Caral in the archaeological knowledge about the first civilizations in South America is certainly very important. Caral posed us with a challenge to understand what was the relationship between religion, economy, and politics, and in the emergence of complex societies. Caral is about 5,000 years old. We're talking about a period of time similar to the construction of the Great Pyramids of Egypt or the emergence of the first cities in Mesopotamia. What's so important about Caral is the first evidence of monumental architecture in the absence of irrigation systems. Traditionally, the archaeologists believe that a step before the emergence of complex societies is irrigation agriculture. An agriculture capable to produce the excellence that will be needed to the increase of population. In the case of Caral, we have a complex society that built vast amounts of monuments, pyramids in this case, but we don't have evidence of intensive agriculture. That led archaeologists to pose the question for the global understanding of the mechanisms acting in the emergence of complexity. And in the case of Caral, we think that it was the interaction between coastal societies and the exploitation of maritime resources and societies that live in the valleys that practice an incipient stage of agriculture. That's why, based on the findings of Caral, there is a new theory in archaeology that we call the maritime foundations of Andean civilization, and pose the possibility that in the Andean region, civilization complexity was not preceded by intensive agriculture, but by the exploitations of maritime resources. And among these resources, anchovies. Anchovies had a central part in this system that allowed for population increase and later on new forms of authority and organization that made possible the construction of monuments. All these elements were taken into consideration by UNESCO at the moment of declaring Caral part of the World Heritage List. Because here, we're not only talking about an impressive architecture, a very old testimony for the emergence of complex society, but also a site and a research line that made globally rethink in the discipline of archaeology what were the bases for the emergence of civilization, for the emergence of state-level societies, institutions. And let me finish by telling you that the archaeologist in charge of the research in Caral, Dr. Ruth Shadi, is now one of the leading voices that propose Caral as, how can I say, the ground zero for the emergency of complexity in the Andes. We usually, traditionally, we look for that ground zero in the highlands, in sites like Chavín de Huántar, also World Heritage, or in the connection between the Amazonian jungle and the highlands. Thanks to the research done in Caral, now we can change our focus towards coastal populations being the basis for complexity. So we are talking about a different direction. It is no more, we are not thinking anymore about highlands to coast, but the other way, coast to highlands. And that's a great advancement, not only for Andean archaeology, but also for the way we globally, as archaeologists, think about the processes behind the emergence of authority, state-level societies, and overall what we call civilization.
A fascinating presentation on Caral. I was wondering whether, how advanced are studies in Caral? I mean, is there much left to investigate? Because obviously, relatively speaking, Caral is new for Peru.
Yes.
So I can imagine there's much left to study, but perhaps you can give us some insight on this.
Sure. Thank you very much for your question. Yes, indeed, in comparison to other archaeological sites, Caral only has 15 years of archaeological research, of intensive archaeological research, which in archaeology, this is very little. We are a discipline that very works based on the accumulation of data, but there's much things to do. I have the great privilege to go to Caral once a year, use my archaeologist backstage privileges, and it is always fascinating to see how much advances they made. For example, last year, they uncovered a couple of figurines that instead of portraying male figures with badges of authority, there were female figures wearing those badges of archaeology that would let us think maybe in a society led by women, which would be very interesting for advancing our knowledge about how societies organize themselves in the distant past. We're not talking about 300, 400, 500 years. We're talking thousands of years here. So if you have the opportunity, once in Peru, please do visit Caral. It's extremely interesting.
Certainly. I went to Caral 10 years ago, and as you say, if I go again, it'll probably be a totally different
sure.
experience.
Oh, sure. Sure. And another thing to remark about the way Caral has been managed is that there have been a lot of work with local populations, local schools. I had the great opportunity to see once a school parade based on Caral in the harbor city of Supe, not far away from there. So Caral, it's really an example of an holistic work that has very strong grounds of research, but also very strong grounds in social work with the population.
I totally agree. With the advantage, of course, for anybody that is traveling to Peru, that it's quite near Lima. It's only an hour and a half away, perhaps. So it's very manageable to go for a day trip.
It is totally possible to go for a day trip. Actually, there are many ways to go there. You can go as part of a tour, but also you can go by yourself and find all the elements that will guide your visit at the site. So it's very, very well managed.
Once again, Enrique, thank you very much. It's been very interesting, and we'll look forward to another meeting with you. Thank you.
Thank you very much.